Testing.
Base season is here. For some of us, that means coming back after some time off, and others, it's the beginning of 3 or 4 months of indoor riding. It's not glamorous, but this phase quietly decides what the rest of the year looks like. And for me, this winter, base season has never mattered more. All right, welcome back to the Pro Amateur. I'm AJ, and today we're going to dive into base season. What it is, why it matters, and how I'm building mine heading into a full gravel race calendar coming up in 2026. So if you've ever taken some downtime or you're settling in for a long winter indoors, this episode is going to land for you. All right, so before we even get into base season, here's what my off season looked like. And honestly, it wasn't the true 2 to 3, 4 weeks, put the bike away, don't touch it, don't do any riding. Because for me, I get naturally time off the bike throughout the year. Big chunks where I can't ride my bike. So for me, this off season looked a little different than off the bike. So with traveling for consulting, the startup, coaching, I accumulate 3 to 4 weeks off the bike in these little 4 or 5 day mini vacation work chunks. It's not perfect, but it's plenty of downtime. So for me, off season meant no structure, really getting back into lifting, being a little more relaxed with my sleeping, eating, going out, hanging out with friends habits. Riding kind of when I felt like it and how I felt like it. So being a little more flexible with what I was doing, when I was doing, who I was doing it with. And honestly, learning how to become a wannabe YouTuber. It was fun, messy, and exactly what I needed. All right, so what is base season? Some people will tell you just need to ride zone 2, or if you're time crunch, just sweet spot, it's the biggest bang for your buck. But in reality, it's much simpler and more universal than that. Base season is the foundation your entire year is built on. It's the concrete slab that keeps the house from shifting. It's the mortar that holds the bricks together. It's the wiring in the walls you never see, but the whole house depends on. And if you look at what the best endurance athletes do, their base periods are extremely low intensity dominant, big, easy volume, and again, small amounts of sprinkled in intensity. There's a great episode from the Roadman podcast I listened to recently. I'll put it up here on the screen, where they talk about how elite riders use base season or zone 2 training and how to do zone training to raise the aerobic floor, not chase the top end numbers. That's really the whole point. Base season about raising the floor, not the ceiling. You're increasing the size of the engine, so later in the year you can actually put in the specific work and put in those specific workouts without having your body blow up or not tolerate it. So let's talk about how I'm structuring my weeks in my base season right now. I build mine around time, not TSS. I think and believe TSS overweights intensity, and intensity is not the goal right now. For the next couple of months, I'll be blending polarized and pyramidal distribution. Mostly zone 2, small controlled doses of tempo, sweet spot, a little bit of threshold just to keep those zones in check. But overall, the structure stays very aerobically dominant. And then once I can get outside again, it naturally increases the hours. I'll shift a little more to that true polarized approach. A lot of easy, longer rides and a little bit more high end. Before trending back toward a pyramidal structure as I lead into some of those key races. So get a little bit of ebb and flow through those pyramidal polarized, but again, getting good doses, and ultimately the foundation again relies on developing that aerobic engine and sprinkling in a little bit higher volume and intensity depending upon the weeks and the time as I'm going into specific race or specific training priorities. The important thing is that early on, nearly everything sits under that aerobic umbrella. We're building capacity first, then frequency, then time, and then intensity. Okay, so big priority for me right now, and for a lot of amateur athletes, in my opinion, should be and is strength training. This is the time to be consistent, build, and put that work in. I'm back in the gym twice a week, working in that 6 to 8 rep range, rebuilding foundational strength. And over time, I'll lower reps and raise intensity as the bike work ramps up. This is the season where gym work actually sticks. So I'll be riding indoors most of the winter, but if Bozeman gives us a random warm day or warm weekend, I'm outside, no structure, just riding, getting some saddle time in. And this year, I'll be using longer, easier days of cross-country and backcountry skiing. These are non-specific but incredibly effective ways to build aerobic durability, load the system without monotony, and support long-term volume development. For us winter athletes, these mixed modality, mixed sports day are endurance days that really serve a good all-around healthy purpose, their goal. So the last 2 years were all about the mountain bike. The Park City Point to Point in 2024 was the big A race, and Leadville 100 this last year. Those were the things that I was really teeing up, really had focused on. They were both amazing experiences, and both were also brutal. But for 2026, I'm all in on gravel. Enough that I finally built up the gravel race bike that I've wanted, not needed, for a few years now. I'll be racing the Unbound 100 end of May, Steamboat GRVL come end of June, maybe the last best ride up in Whitefish, Montana, end of July, and possibly Rebecca's Private Idaho. All leading up and kind of before a big cycling trip my wife and I are taking to Majorca, kind of to close out the cycling season. And longer term, I want another swing at Leadville in 2027 and maybe chase that sub 8 hour mark. This gravel year is laying massive aerobic foundation just for that. So here's what you can do to take into your own base season. First, build around time, not stress. Let the volume accumulate without forcing that intensity. Make zone 2 the dominant flavor of your week. This is where the aerobic adaptations happen, and we lay the groundwork for all the specific, fun, hard stuff that comes later in the year. Sprinkle in intensity strategically, but don't live in it. Tempo, sweet spot, threshold are kind of the seasoning spice, a little bit here, a little bit there, but not the main course. Prioritize strength. You won't have another window like this later in the year or later in the season, and if you're getting old like me, strength trumps all at this point, and so making sure you're getting some of that and your base riding in is critical. Use winter sports to your advantage. Skiing, hiking, cross-country skiing, those longer, lower intensity workload days, those will pay some bills later in the season. Keep this phase low pressure yet. Consistency wins all the time, and good enough beats perfect. So that's what my base season looks like, and why this phase matters so much if you've got big goals in 2026. So over the next few weeks, I'll share how that intensity builds, how I use tempo, a little bit of sweet spot, and some other base or zone 2 workouts to keep things fun throughout the winter, so I'm not just riding steady zones 2 state workouts in the garage or my extra bedroom all day, every day. If you're training through the cold months, you're not behind. You're building the foundation you need for later in the year. So thanks for being here. I think this is where I'm supposed to say leave a 5-star review, smash that subscribe button, leave a comment about what part of the base season you want me to help you understand, figure out, and talk about next.